I'd like to request everyone present here to kindly rise for the University Anthem. Thank you. Please be seated. Good morning, everyone. Honorable Vice Chancellor of Krishna Kanta Hondigoi State Open University, Professor Rajendra Prasad Das. Honorable Vice Chancellor of Assam University Silchar, Professor Rajiv Mohan Pant. Keynote Speaker, Professor Vandana Upadhyay from Rajiv Gandhi University, Arunachal Pradesh. Registrar of Krishna Kanta Hondigoi State Open University, Professor Pranjin Bora. Chairperson of the National Seminar, Professor Joyti Borua. Members of the Board of Management and Academic Council. Respected directors of the School of Studies. Senior officials of the university, faculty members, colleagues, students, and my dear friends. On behalf of the organizing committee, I am delighted to extend your warm and hearty welcome to the NCW-sponsored 2-day National Seminar on Women in Unorganized Sectors, which has been organized by Krishna Kanta Hondigoi State Open University from 12th to 13th December 2024 at its city campus located at Khanapara. This seminar is an essential platform to deliberate on the challenges faced by women in the unorganized sector, issues ranging from lack of legal protection and financial security to gender inequality. As we begin, I'm reminded of a thought by Eleanor Roosevelt. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Today, let us envision a future where women in the organized sector have access to the dignity, rights, and opportunities they truly deserve. We deeply appreciate the unwavering support of the National Commission for Women in championing the rights of women and for sponsoring this vital seminar. I would now like to request the Vice Chancellor of Krishna Kanta Hondigoi State Open University, Professor Rajendra Prasad Das, to felicitate the Vice Chancellor of Assam University, Silchar, Professor Rajiv Mohan Pant, with a Phulam Gamusa and a small token of love and appreciation on behalf of the university. Thank you. I would now like to request the Registrar of Krishna Kanta Hondigoi State Open University, Professor Pranjit Bora, to felicitate Professor Vandana Upadhyaya, Rajiv Gandhi University, with a Phulam Gamusa and a small token of love and appreciation on behalf of the university. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let us take a moment to pay homage to the revered scholar and visionary Krishna Kanta Hondigoi, whose contributions to literature and education continue to inspire us all. I now kindly request the dignitaries present on the dais to proceed and offer floral tribute to his portrait as a mark of a deep respect and gratitude. Thank you. I would now like to request the chairperson of the NCW-sponsored national seminar, Professor Joydeep Barua, to give a brief overview of the seminar.
Honorable Vice Chancellor of our University, Professor R.P. Das, Chief Guest of the Inaugural Session, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Assam University, Professor R.M. Pant, Keynote Speaker of the seminar, Professor Vandana Upadhyaya, Department of Economics, Rajiv Gandhi University, Arunachal Pradesh, distinguished panelist speakers, invited guests, colleagues, research scholars, students, and ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you all to this two-day national seminar on women in unorganized sectors, sponsored by National Commission for Women. I, on behalf of the organizing committee and on my personal behalf, take this opportunity to greet you and express our sincere gratitude for your gracious participation in this seminar and wish that we will have 2 days of fruitful academic discussions. Looking at the seminar title, you can possibly sense the purpose of this seminar. Today and tomorrow, we will be deliberating on the specific issues relating to women in the unorganized sectors. Women's participation in the labor force and their labor market outcomes is considered as an important indicator of gender equality. It is believed that greater participation of women in the labor force and labor market is indicative of a just, equitable, and progressive society. Labor force participation rate in India, that is the percentage of population that is either working or looking for work among women above 15 years, has been estimated at 41.7% compared to 78.8% for males in the last periodic labor force survey released in September this year. Even though the gap between the two is still wide, with labor force participation rate being just 53% that of male, there has been a steady improvement in the female labor force participation rate over the years. The female labor force participation rate was as low as 23.2% in 2017-18 compared to that of male as 75.8%, which was just 30% of the male rate. Clearly, during the last 7-8 years, the female labor force participation rate has improved by about 80%. It is also noteworthy that the improvement in female labor force participation rate has been 94% in rural areas compared to 37% in urban areas. That is, improvement is more in rural areas than in urban areas during the last 8 years. Since the unemployment rate is declining across rural and urban, so it only means that employed women is actually increasing, leading to higher female labor force participation rate over the period. The question is whether this improvement in labor force participation rate of women in the country in recent years strictly means a substantive improvement in the economic condition and overall well-being among the women in general and rural areas in particular. The answers to this question can be found if we carefully examine the quality of work, women's work, and their choices of it. And this is precisely in this context the unorganized sector and its various aspects become extremely important. It is widely held that unorganized sector in the country has been growing significantly in the recent past, providing employment and works to almost 90% of the workforce and contributing about half of the GDP. However, the major challenges in examining this sector comes from lack of clarity and uniformity regarding its definition or defining characteristics on one hand and dearth of reliable and regular statistics about this sector on the other. Most often, the terms unorganized and informal are used interchangeably, making it an amorphous concept to accommodate range of works and employment which are primarily irregular, insecure in nature, marked by poor income and lack of provisions for social security. It has also been observed that this sector turns out to be an umbrella or residual sector providing employment and livelihoods to the socially and economically marginalized section of the society, including the migrants. For example, a closer look at the PLFS data for year 2023-24 will reveal that the category of rural self-employment among female have increased from 58 to 74% during the same period. It is needless to mention that the vast majority of these employments are in the unorganized sector. Increased participation in this sector, therefore, comes with a concern as to whether it can be considered as an indicator of improved economic condition and well-being in substantive sense, or whether it signals distress or a lack of better option for these women. The second important question entails the relationship between the so-called organized and unorganized sectors. Do these sectors are distinct and therefore strictly disconnected from one another? Recent data will reveal that there are evidences of overlaps within these two sectors, and most importantly, there are instances and evidences of growing informality within the organized sector. The recent round of PLFS data indicates that within the category of salaried employment, private and public taken together, the 58% do not have any written job contracts. 47% do not enjoy provision of paid leave. And 53% have no social security benefits. So there is a vast majority, almost half of the employment in organized sector, so-called, there is an informality becoming a prominent feature within. The overlapping nature of the organized and unorganized sector thus makes it extremely difficult to examine these sectors in complete isolation. One is to recognize the mutual interdependency between these two sectors and figure out their specific issues and questions. Notwithstanding, many have highlighted the unique, flexible nature of unorganized sector as its core strength, making it dynamic and potentially vibrant sector for economic growth. Therefore, they argue that in order to get most of the benefits from the sector, the issues of insecurity and uncertainty within the sector needs to be addressed adequately. After all, income security of 90% of the workforce is a big deal for macroeconomic stability in the long run. The role of state in regulating the unorganized sector thus becomes important. And the Unorganized Sector Workers Social Security Act 2008 perhaps was one such attempt. The most critical question, however, is whether the ever-growing unorganized sector allowing greater participation of women ipso facto challenges the larger questions of patriarchy or reinforces patriarchy. Various data suggest that distinct gender divide lying deep within the unorganized sector itself, rather than challenging them. For instance, the average earning per day by female casual labor is 306 rupees compared to 459 rupees for male within the casual work. In the self-employment, the difference is even stark. The female average earning in the self-employment is 5,803 rupees compared to that of male of around 16,723. Therefore, it appears that the sector more often than not mirrors the existing patriarchal structures rather than challenging them. The seminar therefore aims to explore these issues and seeks to answer these questions in more detail, and we are very glad that we have a distinguished lineup of speakers to deliberate on them. At the end of the seminar, we hope to gain insights and answers to these pressing issues and questions. I therefore request your active participation in the discussion and look forward to an academically rewarding experience for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for highlighting on the key aspects of the seminar and on the rationale for organizing this particular seminar. It is my privilege to introduce our esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Vandana Upadhyay from the Department of Economics, Rajiv Gandhi University, Arunachal Pradesh. Her research focuses on gender, labor and employment, human development, migration, rural livelihoods in mountain economies, and the informal sector. She was a Commonwealth Visiting Fellow attached to the Department of International Development, Queen Elizabeth House, University of Oxford, United Kingdom. She has several research publications to her credit and has authored and edited books and articles in prestigious journals of national and international repute. Besides, she has co-authored The Unfolding Crisis in Assam's Tea Plantations, Employment and Occupational Mobility, and co-edited the book Rethinking Economic Development in Northeast India, The Emerging Dynamics. She has even contributed to the Arunachal Pradesh Human Development Report 2005, Arunachal Pradesh State Development Report 2010, Assam Human Development Report 2016, and the NCW Gender Report on Social, Economic and Political Empowerment of Women in Northeast India. May I now request Professor Vandana Upadhyay to deliver the keynote address.
Respected Vice Chancellor, Sir Professor Das of Krishnakanta Hendik State Open University, the Chief Guest, Professor Pant, Vice Chancellor, Assam University, Professor Jaideep Barua, Chairperson of this national seminar, and Professor Bora, Registrar in charge of Krishnakanta Hendik State University, and all invited guests. At the very onset, I would like to thank Krishnakant Hendik State Open University for inviting me for delivering the keynote address on a very important and pertinent topic, that is women in the unorganized sector. My presentation is titled Women in India's Unorganized Labour Market, Insights from the Northeast India. Professor Joydeep Barua had asked me to give more emphasis on the Northeast India, so I have tried to focus on the states of Northeast India, more specifically on the state of Assam. The context of the study, one must keep in mind that today over 60% of the global workforce, they are engaged in the informal economy as per the ILO report 2019. In India, nearly 90% of the workforce, they operate in the informal sector. And now what exactly is the informal sector? Unregulated jobs, low wages, poor working conditions, and lack of social protection. Women in most of the developing countries, they are engaged in own account work. Own account work means they have their own work and they employ their own family members to do that work, employ less than 9 people. Or unpaid helpers or informal work are outside the social protection coverage. Women are also subject to gendered vulnerabilities across their life cycle that affect their choice of occupation and their sustenance in the labor market. In Northeast India, higher informal employment among women compared to the national trend. If you see the national trend, in Northeast India, it is much higher. Now, the importance of focusing for the state of Assam. We must keep in mind Assam's economy is largely dependent on agriculture, handloom sector, traditional craft, where women play a very crucial role. And women in the state also face additional challenges like geographic isolation, lack of infrastructure, and limited access to education and healthcare. So most of the women are employed in the unorganized sector. Hence, empowering women in the unorganized sector is critical for improving their livelihoods, preserving traditional craft, and promoting sustainable development in the region. This diagram basically tells you about the trajectory of women's employment in India, that is the work participation rate in the age group of 15 to 59 years. And I'm showing you the trend from 2018 to 2023. So we observe both in rural and urban area, there has been an upward trend in work participation rate. But there is a lot of debate going on regarding the recent increase in India's female labor force participation rate. What is it? Firstly, there is a reversal of long-term decline. If you take the 40 years data, that is from 1983 to 2023, NSSO data and PLFS data, India's female labor force participation began to rise before COVID-19, that is 17-18, it started rising. Before the pandemic, reversing the long-term decline. Prior to that, from 1983 onwards, it was declining. This trend suggests a shift in women's participation in the workforce. What is positive about it? One view is that the rise in female labor force participation rate is a positive development. More and more women are coming out and working. But the other side is, it is argued that this increase is driven by distressed induced subsistence employment, with women taking up unpaid family work and self-employment in rural areas due to economic hardship. Objective basically was to see the dynamics of women's informal employment in Northeast India, analyze their participation, work participation, highlight the regional variation that is among the northeastern states, and suggest certain policy interventions. Data sources: National Sample Survey, employment survey data, then PLFS data, SDG reports, and then certain primary surveys which have been conducted by me, the findings of those primary survey. This gives you an idea about the labor market, overview of the labor market in India. What do we see? Decline and partial recovery. Labor force and workforce declined from 83 to 2018 with recovery post 2018. Unemployment peaked in 2018 but decreased in recent years. As far as domestic work, increased until 2018, then it has declined. This gives you, for the northeastern states, key labor market characteristics. One time period 2005, the other is 2023. So, historical trends: the female labor force participation fell from 63.8 in 2005 to 38.9% in 2023. Gender gap reduced in all other states except for the state of Assam. Recent growth drivers: women drove the increase in the labor force participation from 2018 to 23, especially in rural areas. Gender disparity: the gender gap in female labor force participation remains significant, particularly in the Northeast. When we come to women's labor force participation, one is workforce participation, the other is labor force. Labor force, we know, where people who are seeking work, they also come under this category, and who are employed. The female labor force participation fell from 44.7% in 1983 to 23.3% in 2018, but surged to 37% in 2023. Women drove the increase in labor force participation from after 2018 to 2023, especially in case of rural areas. And the gender gap in female labor force participation remains significant, particularly in rural areas. We see the labor force participation rate, India versus the Northeast, all the states of Northeast India, and for male and female. Overall gender gap in India has declined: 11-12, 49.5%, 21-23, 39.4%. Regional: among the states, highest gender gap in 2011-12, it was for the state of Assam. Lowest gender gap was in Sikkim, that is for 2011-12. But when we come to 2021-22, highest in Assam and Tripura, and lowest in Meghalaya. Coming down to women's work participation rate, what do we observe? Decline. Work participation of women shows a consistent decline from 93 to 2018, followed by an increase after 2018. Recent gains: what are the gains? Women secured the majority of new employment created between 2018 and 23, with 80.8 million of women compared to 41.5 million of men. Gender disparities in work participation rate: despite the recent recovery, women's work participation remains less than half of that of men. And as far as rural-urban disparities goes, the work participation in rural areas significantly higher than in urban areas, and gender gap also both in case of rural and urban areas. Coming down to work participation rate between India versus the Northeast, what we find, northeastern states like Assam and Tripura show more gender gap than the national average over the period. Coming down to women's employment quality and conditions, what is the status of employment? Three categories of employment: self-employment, regular employment and casual work. So as far as the status of employment of women goes, most of them are self-employed. It's most common among the women, followed by casual and regular salaried. What do we see the trend? Self-employment consistent decline from 83 to 2018, sharp increase after 2018-23. Regular employment increased substantially during the period 1983 to 2018, but declined during 2018 to 23. Casual work has consistently declined from 1983 to 2023. So, as far as women's employment goes in terms of rural and urban areas, rural women predominantly are self-employed. Urban women are more likely to be in regular salaried positions, though there has been a recent decline. Consistent decline in casual work, both in rural and urban areas. What do we find? That majority of the self-employed women are either unpaid family workers or own account workers. Recent surge in self-employment among women from 2018 to 23, amounting to 67.4 million, was primarily driven by only two groups, with 54% being unpaid family workers and 45% being own account workers. Most of the additional self-employed opportunities were created in rural areas, accounting for 95% of the increase. This table basically tells us about the status of employment, that is how the self-employment is increasing both in rural and urban areas for women. As far as gender gap is concerned, that is between Northeast and as a whole and India, we find that the gender gap in self-employment category is generally lower in Northeast region compared to all India. Total self-employment among female in Northeast is significantly higher than that of India, and in case of female participation in regular salaried employment, the position of Northeast is lagging behind that of India. As far as that is over the long period, that is from 83 to 2008, there has been some progress in the growth of formal, organized and regular formal jobs. However, these positive trends have slowed down in recent years, especially after 2018. Informal work continues to dominate the labor market, although the organized sector has expanded and it remains largely informal. Regular formal employment has increased, but its overall share remains low. As far as women's employment in the industrial sector goes, we all know women dominate the agriculture sector, particularly in rural areas where they represent 76.2% of the workforce. This marks a reversal of earlier trends where there has been a consistent decline. As far as non-farm sector is concerned, women's employment in services saw significant growth between 1993 and 2018, but has since declined in recent years. Despite some improvement, women's participation in manufacturing and construction remains relatively low. If you see women's employment by industrial structure for Northeast as well as all India, what do we see? Women dominate the primary sector. Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh show a significant dependence of females in the primary sector, which is considerably higher than all India average. In the non-farm sector, women's employment in industries and services show a better representation of females compared to the national trend. Coming down to wage and earnings, as Professor Barua had mentioned about the difference in wages which both male and female receive. Yes, we do find that average real earnings from self-employment and casual work were almost the same, with casual work providing somewhat higher earnings, indicating that many self-employed women engaged in low earning activities. So you can very well imagine the quality of employment. When I say there is an increase in self-employment, it basically means they are earning less than a casual worker also. So definitely the earnings are very low. Wide gender wage gap, highest in self-employment and lowest in regular employment. And gender wage gap slightly decreased in regular employment. It decreased in regular employment, and it increased in casual and self-employment. Per hour earned by both in case of average age, Northeast and India as a whole, except craft related trades, in all other occupation, wage rate for male is higher than that of females. Wide gender wage gap exists in different occupation. Gender wage gap slightly lower in regular employment, and it is more prevalent in casual and self-employment. Now, what are the factors that influence women's labor force participation and unemployment situation? Key factors contributing to participation in the labor force: whether you belong to a rural or urban area, which social group you belong, and the age factor. As far as key factor contributing to women's unemployment situation, it is education, marital status, and age. As far as the unemployment situation in the Northeast India is concerned, in case of women in India, it has declined from 6 to 3.2% during the period 17-18 to 22-23. The gap between male and female unemployment rate has also narrowed down at the national level. However, in the context to Arunachal Pradesh, unemployment rate among male is found to be slightly higher during 22-23, which was a dramatic shift from a considerable persistent female unemployment rate, with gender gap of 6.70% in 2017-18. It indicates a rapid rise in female employment in Arunachal Pradesh. The rate is much higher than the all India average and highest among the northeastern states. Some of the key highlights: significant increase in rural areas. We find that is 76 million new jobs created for women in rural areas. Predominance of self-employment. That is 84% of the new jobs are self-employed roles, unpaid family workers or own account workers. Majority of them are in the agriculture sector, 79.4% new jobs in the agriculture sector. Education level, below secondary or no formal education, 77% of the new jobs. Income class, in the bottom three categories, 66% of the new jobs. And low average earnings, that is even lower than casual. That is average earnings even lower than casual, far below than regular. That is 2,651 self-employed, casual 3,057 and regular 6,394. So overall increase in employment is due to joining of females in low paid or subsistence employment. As far as regional disparity is concerned, we look into the employment condition index. So what is the employment condition index? It assesses the regional differences and progress in women's employment quality using 7 labor market key indicators. What are they? Percentage of women in regular formal jobs,
workers population ratio, proportion of casual workers, proportion of self-employed below the poverty line, average monthly earnings of casual workers, unemployment rate among educated youth and youth not in education, employment and training, that is NEET. NEET means those people who are neither in employment, neither in study, education or doing any training. So improvements in ECI, that is Employment Condition Index, it improved from 0.47 in 2005 to 0.55 in 2023, with female increasing by 9 points and for male by 8 points during that time period. What are the challenges which we face? It remains including low female participation in formal jobs, high NEET rates, that is they are neither in employment nor in education nor in training, and educated youth unemployment and significant regional disparities. As far as regional disparities considered, Employment Condition Index, we find in the high category among the Northeast we have Sikkim, high regular formal employment, low casual workers, high earnings. In the moderate category among the Northeast you have Tripura, significant improvements in most of the indicators, and the low ECI states you have Assam among the Northeast state, high NEET rate, NEET neither in education, employment or training, high casual labor, low average casual wages. In case of Arunachal and other northeastern state, female ECI has increased by 0.9 during 2005-23. However, for male it is not up to the mark. So, except Tripura and Assam, the ECI points has improved or is in favor of women for most of the northeast state. Major concern is Tripura, where gender gap in ECI between male and female has increased significantly during 2005-23. If you see the correlation between employment condition indicators and economic development, we find a positive correlation with per capita state domestic product with formal employment and casual wage rate, negative correlation as per capita state domestic product with self-employed, poor and NEET with female work participation, weak correlation with female work participation rate. So what is the key message? Quality versus quantity of employment. States with higher GDP, formal employment, casual wages tend to have higher ECI scores irrespective of female workforce participation rate. As far as the labor force participation rate is concerned and the gender gap in the unorganized sector, what do we find? The trend, employment of women, it shows improvement in recent years, though it is not enough compared to the potential. In case of unorganized sector and female employment, we find the unorganized sector is a striking feature of most of the developing countries, where more than 90% employment is engaged in this sector. If female employment in the unorganized sector is higher in Northeast than the rest of the Indian state, in case of Northeast India. Challenges, while increasing participation is essential, but merely increasing female labor force participation or female workforce is not sufficient to ensure desired economic outcomes. You can take the example, Sub-Saharan Africa, the female labor force participation rate stands at 61%, but it is among the lowest developed regions. So creating decent, productive employment opportunities are important, as has been emphasized in the Sustainable Development Goal number 8. However, prevalence of informal economy, which is highly criticized for low remuneration and underrepresentation, along with health and work-related securities, and over-representation of females in this sector of the economy is a serious issue for Northeast India as well as overall India. Sorry. What are the characteristics of unorganized labor market? We all know. Women in informal employment, low paying sector, lack of regular employment contracts, lack of access to social security, excessive burden of unpaid and care work, poor working conditions, overcrowded spaces, poor lighting, and extreme temperatures. So we do find gender gap is found to be higher in most of the northeastern states of India compared to overall India. Unlike total employment, which was higher among male than for the female, in unorganized sector, the reverse situation is observed where rate of female exceeds males. Then in both India and Assam, the informal sector constitutes a majority of employment with minimal changes between 1999 and 2012. The formal employment share remains low and stable over the years for both India and Assam, reflecting limited expansion of secure jobs. Female workers in Assam display a strong reliance on informal sector compared to the national trend, indicating fewer formal employment opportunities for women in the state. Male employment in the informal sector grew at a higher rate nationally compared to Assam. While female informal employment declined nationally, it increased in Assam by 3.87%. Assam's overall informal employment growth exceeded the national growth rate, driven by a strong rise in female participation in informal employment. As far as employment status of women goes, we see it is just the self-employed and unpaid family worker which dominates in case of women. Now, what are the challenges which we face? Educated youth unemployment. National scenario, overall unemployment rate among educated females stands at approximately 19.3%, much higher than their male counterparts, 14.7%, and overall 15.9% employment rate. High youth unemployment states: Kerala, Goa, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Northeast, Meghalaya, Manipur. Despite high educational attainment by young women, states like Kerala and Goa face significant unemployment among educated women. Northeast scenario, states also educated unemployment among female youth has increased drastically despite the overall growth of female employment scenario. Employment challenges, that is NEET young women. National scenario, overall NEET rate among females stands at approximately 43%, very high compared to other developed countries. States with high NEET rates are Assam, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. They have very high NEET rate. Assam as high as 74.6%. So Northeast scenario, unemployment and NEET rates remain high among educated women, with informal jobs absorbing a large share of the female workforce. The persistence of wage disparities, especially in casual labor, shows the economic inequities that limit women's financial independence. You do PLFS data, you do find gender gap among educated youth among the northeastern states. Access to job contracts, if you see, the challenges remain. Social security benefit in the age group, if you see, it is mostly very low in terms of maternity benefits. You just find for all the groups, it's very low. In the age group of 15 to 59 years, you just find maternity benefits low, 15.52. Lack of regular job contracts and access to social security. From the PLFS data, there has been a decline in regular contracts by 3.1% during 17 and 2023. 78% of women workers did not have job contracts. 77% women were not eligible for social security. Non-eligibility of social security benefits increased by 13.7%. It is more contractualization. Only 15.3% had access to maternity and other benefits. Access to other social security benefits was between 1 to 4%. Why women have not been working? What are the challenges in extension of that is social protection? First, main challenges, childcare and household responsibilities. That is the biggest challenge which the women face. We all know that unpaid work, women are the people who are maximum women, they do those work. What is the challenge? That is insights from a time use survey which was conducted by a national sample survey in 2019. Unpaid and care work restricting them from participating in full-time employment. Women spend 5.2 hours in unpaid domestic services and 2.3 hours in unpaid caregiving. Girl children, 1.5 times more they spend time than the boys. And then even in the age group of 15 to 70 years, we find gender differentials where girls are spending twice the time than boys in domestic work. Girls' engagement in unpaid care and domestic work at age 12 for over 2 hours daily on an average. So unpaid care work, I have just highlighted it so you can see the difference that how much they are spending their time. And most of the work for domestic and care related work, you can see the difference. The yellow one is the female, so you can see how much time they spend. Now I would just, in 2 or 3 slides, I would just highlight the study which was conducted in the Indian Himalayan region. We had done a study for the Niti Aayog. So we all know that Himalayan region farming is predominant and very low induction of technology and absorption of unpaid female labor on a very large scale. The agriculture practiced in the Himalayan region is very labor intensive, and it is the women folk who work in the agriculture field. So, and if you see, as per the 2011 census, the top 10 states where women's work participation is very high, 8 of them are in the Himalayan region. The study area was this: Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, Himachal, Uttarakhand, and then Arunachal, Nagaland, Manipur, Assam, Sikkim, Darjeeling, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram. Most of the hilly areas. We had taken most of the hilly areas. The sample size was 15,399 females. We conducted it in 44 districts, and it was for the women in the age group 15 to 49. It was enumeration, economic valuation of the work which they do in the hills. So what did we find? Why time use survey is considered so important? What does it show us? The study of women's unpaid labor through time use survey in the context of hill economy is crucial. Most of these economies are only partially market economies. Non-market transactions are still significant. And the work that women do is often overlapping across sectors and across activities. Now, multiple work women do. Much of the work, women's work, both visible and invisible, is not documented in official statistics. And the contribution of women towards households' food and energy security is immense. The table shows for the Indian Himalayan region, the maximum amount of time is spent in SNA primary activities, even in case of Western Himalayas as well as the Eastern Himalayas. So what did we find? Female participation in the Indian Himalayan region was highest in SNA primary activities compared to SNA secondary and tertiary. Most of the women in the hills of Himalaya work in their agriculture field for their livelihood, producing subsistence level. As far as caregiving, SNA or extended SNA caregiving activities, you will find that both in Western and Eastern Himalaya, they spend a lot of time doing these activities. So what are we finding? With men moving out to work in the informal sector, it is the women who are taking the full burden of agriculture in the hill regions. So feminization of agriculture taking place in a big way. We know access to forest and jhum lands are very central for ensuring food, nutrition and energy security. And women have hardly any control over the money that comes from the commercial exploitation of common lands and forests. So time in collecting and producing the basic needs of the household in the form of food, water, energy, which is vital for the survival of the household, women are spending their time for this. So what did we find? That sectoral transformation of output and occupational structure taking place in the Himalayan region, still this transformation has not been gender neutral. Many studies have revealed that women in the hills spend more labor days in farm operations than men. Also, their weekly average time in primary agriculture activities is much more than men in recent years. And then you find women disproportionately share the responsibility of maintaining subsistence agriculture and allied activities like animal husbandry in the hills. They are also overburdened as the tasks and activities which is traditionally performed by the men folk is being done by women today. So economic contribution of women remains systematically underreported in the official data system. Women's work is mostly not visible and partially accounted for. And then if you see, that was the findings of the primary survey, but now I just come to the policy suggestions. High income generating potential sectors for women on the basis of NSSO data. You find what are the various activities where women can be taken into consideration. Employment generating potential sector for women in Northeast India, both in case of rural and urban areas. So the key employment generating potential sectors for women: social work activities, legal accounting activities, office administrative support, information service activities, and activities of household as employees of domestic personnel, repair of computer and personal and household goods. Despite that, Northeast region shows potential in female entrepreneurship, with states like Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh outpacing national averages in women-led enterprises. So now I would just like to conclude with certain policy pointers. Recent trend: increased unemployment in rural areas, mainly unpaid, low-paid self-employment in agriculture. Urban women participation remains low, lagging behind rural women and men. Labor market in the Northeast India illustrates a complex interplay of progress and persistent disparities, with women disproportionately represented in the unorganized sector. What are the challenges that have been identified? Quality of employment. No doubt women participation has increased, but what is the quality of employment? Overwhelming majority are low income, poor quality, especially for rural women. Disparities, regional disparities and socioeconomic disparities influence women's employment. Over the years, the Northeast region has witnessed some advancement, including wage growth and a gradual transition towards formal employment. However, these improvements remain unevenly distributed, with significant gender gaps in workforce participation, employment quality and wages persists across states. What are the key issues? High unemployment rate among educated young women and rising NEET rate. The labor market in Northeast India illustrates a complex interplay of progress and persistent disparities, with women disproportionately represented in the unorganized sector. As far as quality of employment goes, employment quality over mere participation rate. Emphasis must be on employment quality, better job quality, crucial for women's financial independence and dignity, and will also contribute to the national economy. A key priority is the formalization of the informal employment through simplified registration mechanism, incentivizing compliance with labor regulations and fostering collaboration that create formal job opportunities. Rural-urban differentials, they exist, so we must focus on that. Rural areas need for stable, better paying non-farm employment. Urban areas, interventions to align jobs with women's qualification and break cultural employment barriers. Establishing accessible vocational training centers, particularly in rural areas, can further mitigate barriers to skill acquisition, generate suitable employment opportunities for women. The key challenge, create job opportunities aligned with educational qualification. More and more educated women are likely to join the labor force and need of suitable jobs. Engage, meet women in productive employment. And we need to have suitable women-friendly policies. We all know that urbanization and migration is bound to increase in future. So suitable women-friendly migration policies, you have creche facilities, transport, housing facilities, and then monitoring and evaluation has to be done regularly to assess the impact of programs that encourage women's labor force participation. To address the challenges faced by women in the unorganized labor market in Northeast India, policy intervention must focus on enhancing employment quality, security and equity. And then regional disparity, how do you address that? Tailor policies to meet the specific need of the region. All states of Northeast India cannot be same. Every states have different challenges, so have state-specific policies. Focus on marginalized groups and economically disadvantaged groups. Targeted skill development initiatives that align with opportunities in the formal economy can significantly improve women's employability. Long-term vision, what is it? Sustainable employment quality and encourage the sectors with high employment potential for women. Encourage participation of young, neat women. Generate suitable and women-friendly environment to provide a suitable and secure job, which will not only reduce high educated unemployment but also contribute to the national income. Additionally, targeted skill development initiatives that align with opportunities in the formal economy. And then must have quality data. Future labor market is going to be very complex, and the fast changing need is that we need to have better quality data. Last slide, I would say, how towards a transformative agenda, what can we do? Gender mainstreaming of labor force surveys. There must be modules on social security. Conduct time use surveys at regular intervals. We conduct the employment unemployment survey regularly. Conduct the time use survey also, so that you can uncover the unpaid work and time poverty. Emphasis on sectoral employment policies, that is provisioning of social security, covering life cycle risks, that is maternity care rights to be given, strengthening of existing labor legislation by aligning them with international standards, and then addressing gender inequalities in early years, emphasis on adolescent girl children, non-schooling hours, that is unpaid work. We all know that women participation post 2000 2018 has been on the rise. But the question is about the quality of employment. Most of these women are self-employed women, and the earnings of these self-employed women on an average is less than that of a casual worker. So more or less it's a distress-driven employment. So the big question is that we need to ensure that the quality of employment for women also improves. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Vandana Upadhyay, for your speech. Your profound insights have not only deepened our understanding, but have also provided us with a fresh perspective on the challenges and opportunities faced by women in the unorganized sector. I'm sure we all have much to reflect on after the address. We appreciate the depth of knowledge you have shared with us today. A distinguished academician and an able administrator, Professor Rajiv Mohan Pant is presently serving as a Vice Chancellor of Assam University, Silchar, with specialization in the areas of organizational development and change management, rural development, marketing of rural products and services, and policy on Indian Himalayan region. Professor Pant had contributed immensely in the field of management. Before joining as a Vice Chancellor of Assam University, Professor Pant had served as a professor at the Northeastern Regional Institute of Science and Technology, Arunachal Pradesh, where he was involved in teaching, research, and consultancy. He has undertaken several research projects funded by esteemed organizations like the MacArthur Foundation and the Indian Council for Social Science Research. I would now like to request the Vice Chancellor of Assam University, Professor Rajiv Mohan Pant, to address the gathering.
Honorable Professor Das Ji, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of this KKHSOU State Open University, very esteemed Professor Vandana Ji, a very widely acclaimed economist, and we just heard her, Professor Jaideep Barua Ji, the chairperson of this national seminar, Professor Pranjit Bora Ji, distinguished personalities present here. Very good morning to you all. It is indeed a pleasure being here in the midst of such an enlightened audience here in this hall. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to be here with this enlightened audience. In fact, I worked in NIRD, which is very close, and I saw this university coming up, right from foundation stone to this level, and for the first time I have entered this university. So I must thank Professor Dasi for giving me this opportunity. This university is doing a great job. I must congratulate this university family for having done a wonderful job, and you are definitely a pride of our Northeast region. We just heard Professor Jaideep Barua Ji, followed by the special address of renowned economist Vandana Ji. And now there's hardly anything for me to add on to that, and especially after listening to a very elaborate presentation of Vandana Ji, I'm a little nervous what to say. She made such an elaborate presentation and highlighted the plight of women across the country and of course in Northeast India as well. Unorganized sector, of course, is the most underprivileged sector, I would say. They hardly have access to most of the government schemes. Women working in unorganized sector, their plight is definitely very, very poor, and Vandana Ji presented that poignant picture of that women working in organized sector. While I was listening to her, one thought was hovering in my mind. Did we ever have an ecosystem when women were empowered in our country? Did we ever have this kind of ecosystem where women were given a very lead role? I was asking myself, and then answer was obvious. Yes, we did have an environment where our women were highly empowered. I'm sure you must be little skeptical about what I'm saying. I try to divide timeline into these three phases. Our country's timeline in three phases. One is Swarnakal, Visadkal, and again Amritkal. When I say that women were highly empowered in our country, I'm referring to that Swarnim Kal, the golden age that our country Bharat witnessed. We had women like Ganga, highly empowered, fiercely empowered women. We treat her as Ganga Ma. We had Sakuntala. We had all Navdurgas, Devis. Do we hear of this kind of system anywhere else in the world? Such an empowerment we had in our country. You all must have read Ramayana, and you must have seen Ramayana serial, must have seen how Sita's wedding was solemnized. Swayamvar was organized where all big people came and they had to compete to marry Ma Sita. That kind of system we had. Women had a choice to select, and men folk were basically falling to their feet. We had that kind of system, and that age prevailed for a very long time. Then what happened all of a sudden that women were basically pushed to a corner, and our society became a male chauvinistic society, male dominance. I would say the circumstances. A lot of foreign aggression happened in our country. We were too liberal, we were too lenient, we were too spiritual, and we were very welcoming. And this attitude of ours was betrayed. People came in the disguise of friends, and then they betrayed us, and we were enslaved for a very long time, and forced by the circumstances, women were put within the four walls of their houses. And that was the period I term as Visad Kal, where we suffered heavily, and maximum sufferings were faced by the women. And then, of course, the worst thing that happened during Visal Kal was the exploitation of women in every aspect, and they were seen as a very delicate, poor or very weak kind of thing, which was quite contrary to the status of women they enjoyed during Swarnakal. Now, after independence, we are celebrating. We have already completed 75 years of independence. Now we have entered, our Prime Minister Modi ji says, he has given a very nice term that Amrit Kal. We are going through this Amrit Kal, and this is the time we are trying to revive our old strengths. We want to make Bharat again a Vishwaguru. We want to bring back that Swarnim Kal to our great nation. And that will not happen unless 100% population of the country is included in this process of development. Women, 50% of our population is women. If they are not included in the process of development, how can we expect of becoming a Vishwaguru? How can we expect becoming a developed nation if 50% population is not included in this development process? So this is the time we are trying to revive our lost glory, and this is the time We are trying to utilize each and every citizen of the country for the growth of our nation. In a lighter vein, there is a saying that lad, a boy, lad is just 3/4 of lady. Man is 3/5 of woman, and Adam is 3/4 of madam. That shows the strength of our women in a lighter vein. In every way, in every aspect, women are even far more powerful. We say that men smart, women smarter. We need to keep that in mind. So we cannot afford to ignore what is to be done to realize the actual strength of women is that we need to involve them, we need to include them in the process of development. Huge unorganized sector exists in our country, which is deprived of most of the welfare schemes. Vandana ji has very nicely elaborated that they are not having access to many things. Government of India has launched many good schemes for women. That's a very welcome thing to happen. But a large section of our workforce is not covered by those schemes because they are working in an organized sector. So we have to reach to the unreached people who are not still having that access to these schemes. We need to find out ways. We need to come out with some policy documents which will help us, which will guide us in reaching out to this unreached workforce. And unless and until that happens, this dream of becoming Vishwaguru or dream of becoming a developed nation will be a mirage. We'll simply be chasing a mirage. If we depend on just few people, few sections of society, that this part of society will take us to that status of, to the orbit of this developed nation, I'm sorry, that will not happen. So inclusiveness is the key thing to basically put us on the path of development, and that will not happen unless and until we reach out to the unreached people. I would not go into details. As I mentioned in the very beginning that I'm nervous what to say after having heard Professor Vandana ji, because she presented a very elaborate data and proper statistics. On the basis of that, she has done a wonderful job in this line. So I have nothing more to add to this. I would like to quote Napoleon Bonaparte. He once mentioned, "Give me good mothers, I'll give you a good nation." We have many mothers working in unorganized sector. They need to be strengthened. Their power needs to be strengthened. They need to be empowered if we really want to be a great nation. Once again, I would like to thank organizers for giving me this opportunity to interact with this wonderful audience. Thank you so much, and we all need to work for making Bharat a Vishwaguru, a developed nation, and unless and until we all involve, this will be a dream. This will just be a dream which will not be realized. So I urge all of us to, a country of 1.4 billion population, if we do small things, that will result in a very big, that will have a very big effect. So let us join hands together, let us work for, and right now the topic is unorganized sector, women in organized sector. Let us work to strengthen this unorganized sector women and make Bharat a real great nation. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Your insights were incredibly valuable and thought-provoking. We look forward to the opportunity to work together again in the near future. Your speech was not only riveting, it left a lasting impression on all of our attendees. I would now like to request the Vice Chancellor of Krishnakanta Hondigoi State Open University, Professor Rajendra Prasad Das, to deliver the presidential address.
Good afternoon. Respected Chief Guest, Professor Rajiv Mohan Pantji, Vice Chancellor, Assam University, Silchar, keynote speaker of this 2 days national seminar on women in unorganized sector, respected Bandana Upadhyay ji, Professor of Economics, Rajiv Gandhi University, Arunachal Pradesh, Registrar of our University, Pranjit Buraji, Chairperson of this organizing committee, Professor Jaideep Buraji, Convener of the seminar, Ritimani Bordolai, members of Board of Management, members of Academic Council, our own university faculty members and staff, distinguished guests from participants from different institutions, my dearest research scholars, learners, all media friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great privilege and honor for me to welcome you all to this 2 days national seminar on women in unorganized sector. I am delighted to preside over this 2 days national seminar. This is being organized in collaboration with National Commission for Women. An institution has been consistently encouraging, supporting such initiative across the country to address contemporary issues and challenges faced by women. This seminar aims to shed light on the issues affecting women engaged in the unorganized sector nationwide, fostering awareness among all, irrespective of gender, about these critical issues. I could see the presentation by our keynote speaker and observation of our chief guest. So I have also nothing to say much about the issues which are to be addressed in these 2 days function. But as a student of management, after listening the keynote speaker, I feel that it's a very peculiar situation. If we look at the statistics which was given by Madam Upadhyay, it was very interesting that I was also looking at the literature before coming to this program. But before that, I still remember that we are living in a country very peculiarity that not more than 4% of our working force are organized. India is a country in the world which has the largest number of registered trade unions, not recognized. And in this context, whenever we talk about women in unorganized sector, out of the working women, almost 94% of them are working in unorganized sector. Their number is in crores. And if we look at the living and working condition in different sectoral organization, it is very peculiar, unfortunate and unbelievable. And I still remember a study which I had gone through, which was published in Indian Journal of Industrial Relations way back 87, that unionization among the maid servants in Delhi. Subsequently, I conducted a similar study in Jamshedpur, and afterwards when I was working in Ujjain, I was comparing that what is happening. That without unionization, the things are different. With unionization, the things used to be different. But unfortunately, even though their number is quite large, 94%, a huge percentage of women working in unorganized sector, but they are not unionized. So their voice, they have no voice, they have no choice, but they have to do whatever is expected from them by their employers. You know, I remember, I take you back to before the enactment of Factories Act, the people were working from sunrise to sunset. There was no definite period for taking rest. People used to work in hazardous occupation. There was no rest break. There was no any fixed day for payment of remuneration. There was no sick leave. There was no any leave. There was no any fixed compensation for the people, because of which Factory Act came into existence, because of which regularization started to come into existence in the place of work. But if we compare the present working condition of women working in unorganized sector, the question is there any substantial visible change in the country? I do not want to compare the women in organized sector in our country vis-a-vis other countries. Whenever the discussion is about our country and in Northeast, it's a very serious issue which need to be addressed by the policymakers and planners, and each one of us, what Rajiv Mohanji said, each one of us have to address this issue. No doubt, there has been a sea change in the last 2 decades with respect to the status of women, whether they are working in organized sector or unorganized sector. But one of the major issue for which the crisis prevails the education. The women working in unorganized sector are facing the biggest challenge is their education. Wherever there is education, illiteracy, there is ignorance and there is exploitation. Majority of the workforce, whether it is men or women, they are suffering because of their illiteracy, because of their ignorance. And I am very happy that organizers of this 2 days national seminar have chosen a topic in our university. The motto of this university is to reach the unreached, to provide quality education at affordable cost to those who used to be deprived of higher education in their life. And all of you will be happy to know that our university is a university where more than 60% of our teaching and non-teaching staff are women. And more than 60% of our learners are in post-graduation programs are women. So it gives a clear message that we are concerned for this issue. I am confident that with education, the problem which prevails among the women, not only in organized sector and unorganized sector, is going to reduce. Time may come, it may vanish. So all of us have to join together to discuss this issue in detail. We have been given an opportunity by National Commission for Women to decide, to discuss and decide the issues, the problems, the challenges which are being faced by the women, especially in unorganized sector. And we should also evolve the mechanism, we should suggest the mechanism what our institutions should do through various programs, so that we can also be the part of the solutions which the solutions to the problem which exist for the women working in unorganized sector. I am confident that these 2 days deliberation, which is going to be made by the distinguished academics and practitioners in the field, are going to give us solid ideas on the basis of which we'll start some program in our university, and the ideas which are going to evolve from this 2 days conference, and I think policymakers should also get some suggestions by which they can sort out the problems which are being faced by the women in organized sector, unorganized sector in Northeast and in the whole country. I wish the program a grand success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Your vision and leadership inspires us all to strive for greater academic and social excellence. We deeply appreciate the time and effort you have taken to share your insights and set the tone for the seminar. I would now like to request the Registrar of Krishna Kanta Hondigoi, State Open University, Professor Pranjit Bora, to offer the formal vote of thanks.
Good afternoon. সকলোকে নমস্কাৰ জনাইছো. All the respected dignitaries present on the dais and each and everyone sitting before me in this hall. It is on behalf of the organizing committee and also on behalf of the entire fraternity of the university, I offer my most sincere gratitude and thankfulness to the renowned economist Professor Vandana Upadhyay Madam from Rajiv Gandhi University for her excellent keynote address. Basically, I am a man from the field of literature. But while I was going through your lecture, the keynote address, so I received many insights and I jotted them down, and I was thinking how these issues can be brought to the field of literature also. So for this insightful deliberation, on behalf of the university, I offer my heartfelt gratitude to you, and also I am thankful to Professor Rajiv Mohan Pant sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Assam University, for his excellent address as the chief guest today, and his appeal that we should pave our hands for the uplift of the women in all directions, including the unorganized sector. This is a timely appeal, and I also offer my heartfelt thanks to you. A special thanks also goes to our Honorable Vice Chancellor sir for his constant support and inspiration, and also to National Commission for Women for their financial support and encouragement in making this event a reality, and also to Professor Joydeep Barua, the chairperson of the organizing committee, and Dr. Ritimoni Bordoloi, the convener of the committee, along with all other members and each and everyone associated with this event in making this event a reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words and for acknowledging the efforts of everyone who made this event a success. As we conclude the inaugural session of the seminar, I would like to take a moment to reflect on the insightful discussions and inspiring messages we have heard today. The words of our distinguished speakers have not only highlighted the challenges faced by women in the unorganized sector, but have also provided us with pathways to envision solutions and foster change. As we move forward, let us carry in the spirit of collaboration and inquiry into the upcoming sessions. I would now like to request everyone present here to please rise for the national anthem.
तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मांगे, गाहे तव जय गाथा, जन गण मंगल